Hello bookworms, the Timber's Den. My name is Whitney and I have a bonus video for you guys. So a week or so ago, I woke up and there was a book on my nightstand and I was like, where did this book come from? I was kind of joking with my husband that the book fairy came. I thought it was either, my mother-in-law or my sister-in-law that maybe they had given my husband the book to give to me. And it actually turned out it was my brother-in-law's girlfriend. So I was really surprised, that she had thought of me. But she had two copies of this book and she thought I would really enjoy it. And so she gifted me City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is book one in the Mortal Instrument series. And yeah, really glad she gifted it to me. I have a tendency when something is really overly hyped, I kind of stay away from it until the hype dies down. And one reason I do that is because I think when they're overly hyped, I have a higher expectation of the book, and a lot of times I get let down because I have a certain expectation, and they rarely meet that expectation. Um, and so that's kind of was my stance on this series. I was definitely, it was on my radar. I was definitely interested in reading it at some point, but not anytime soon. Down the line, I would have jumped into it. But what was funny was as I was reading this, it was very, very familiar to me, and I couldn't figure out why. So I started doing research, and there's actually a movie based on this book, which I never watched the movie. I guess it didn't get very good reviews or anything like that. But there's also a TV series based on the book, and that's why I was familiar with it. I had watched the TV series. And so I already knew all the little spoilers and everything that went into this book before I ever, well, I mean, I obviously had started it, but I hadn't gotten very far. And I rewatched the first episode of the series. Um, and I had only watched the first season as far as I remember. And I think there's like three seasons, but I had only watched the first one. So I had all the little spoilers, and I do have to say that I think the show did a very good job um, following the storyline of the book and following the characters. Because for it to be that familiar to me that I was questioning whether I read it when I knew, for certain I hadn't, I think the show did a really, really good job. There are some changes, like the girl, she's older in the show. In the show, she's 18. In the book, she's about to turn 16. In the show, the Institute is more like high tech and there's actual like people there, where in the book it's a little bit more isolated, and there's not that many of them. But basically, I would assume you're familiar with the book, but just in case you're not, it follows Claire, who has gone her whole life not knowing about the shadow hunters, and the other world that is part of ours. And basically, the shadow hunters hunt demons and kill demons. And so she's out with her friend and she sees them. And they kind of follow this boy, and she thinks it's really suspicious and she sees the knife. And so she goes and confronts them. And she shouldn't be able to see them. And so they're kind of wondering why she can see them. Like, what's the deal with her? She's not a shadow hunter, but she can see them. And then there's a whole deal with her mother as well. Like her mother, this is maybe a slight spoiler, but not really. It kind of, is at the very beginning of the book and is part of the main part of the story. But her mother gets taken and she goes home to find a demon in her house. And so she kind of has to battle the demon. Of course, the shadow hunters are right there as well because they're trying to figure out what the deal is with her. And so she actually kills the demon, but he's right there to kind of save her because obviously she doesn't have a clue and she actually gets injured. And so they figured out that she has to have shadow hunter blood somewhere along the line. And so they're trying to figure out the mystery of her mom and who she is and all that, and try to find her mom as well. And so it just kind of goes down that rabbit hole. And there's Jace, and then there's, I think it's Alec and Isabel, who are brother and sister. Their little brother Max is not in the book. I think he comes in at the end, or no, I started reading the next because they always leave the little clip. That's what it was. And so he's not in this book, and Isabel and Alex's parents are in this book as well. They're talked about, but they're not actually in the book as characters so much. Um, and so basically, there's kind of like this council, and that's where the parents are. There's these things that are called the Accords that keep the peace between like um the shadow hunters and like part demons, like werewolves and such that aren't like actual demons, but they live um in the world and such. So they kind of keep the peace. The Accords do, and they all sign it. And then there's also a group called the Circle who are shadow hunters that kind of went like fanatic. Um and they kind of crashed like so many years before, and that all ties in together. And there's several different little spoilers that pop up at the end, little twists and such, but really really enjoyed it, even knowing the story and having watched the show. I really enjoyed reading the book and following along on that journey, um, kind of creating this whole picture in my head. Even though I had seen the show, my memory's not the greatest, and so there were certain things that were familiar, but it was still really enjoyable for me to follow along the journey. I'm definitely going to be keeping this one. I'm definitely in the future going to be getting the rest of the series. I'm not going to do that anytime soon. I just can't quite justify it yet. I really need to work through the rest of my own books and decide what I'm going to keep and such first. And then there's some books that I'm definitely going to get to complete, certain collections and such. But that's before I start, buying a whole new series and everything like that. So, really enjoyed it. Definitely worth the hype. I can see why everybody was really talking about this, and it is so popular. But yeah, just a really good read, really fun, enjoyable. Definitely some twists and such that I don't know, because I already knew the twist, so I don't know how much foreshadowing there is that kind of allows you to guess. There is a little bit on some of the twists, but some of the others I don't think you would see that coming. Like I said, I did because I've seen the show, but I do think it does surprise you at the end. I would say, but yeah, just really enjoyable. I would recommend it, even if you're like me who tends to wait till the hype dies down. I think this is one that's worth the hype for sure. But I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.